and I became pregnant at 17. But you got to remember too, I purposely did it because I believed in the Y2K. So I decided that I would become an exotic dancer. So he gets out of the truck, and I can't see behind me, but all I hear is 3 gunshots. And I'm like, okay, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. I'm Shanda Miller, co-pastor of Legacy Church in New Philadelphia, Ohio, and I'm recovering from religion. So when I was 7 years old, my grandmother would take us to church, and I loved it. It was great. It was a very religious church, but I loved it. It was a time with my grandma. She was my mentor. But when I'd come home, it wasn't so safe. My father was an alcoholic, and when he would drink, he was very abusive. He was abusive when he wasn't drinking, but so much more when he was. And my mom, I truly believe she just hated him at that point. And I couldn't really blame her because she grew up in a terrible, terrible home where my grandfather raped her from 9 years old until she was around 17. So she came damaged already in the marriage. So it was a very dysfunctional home. So I was saved. I was baptized in 1984 with the Holy Spirit. So I loved God and I knew God. Me and my sister knew God. But like I said, we'd come home. It just wasn't a safe time for us. So there was a time my mother mustered the strength to leave my father. And when she did, she was staying with a male friend. He was a very kind man, very, very kind man. But we were hiding. And I didn't know where we were. As a little girl, I didn't know where we were at. And there was a time that she went out one evening with her boyfriend, and I stayed with my 2 little sisters at my aunt and uncle's house in a nearby town. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, probably when the bars shut down, now that I'm older and know, they went to pick us up in his truck. So I remember wearing a long white Hanes t-shirt. You know, my uncle was a big man, and I remember it coming down past my knees. And we got in the truck, and it was a hot summer night, probably June. And I remember trying to sleep on my mother's lap. Back then, you didn't have to wear seatbelts, so I'm on my mother's lap. My little 9-month-old sister's in a car seat in the middle of the truck, and my 5-year-old sister is sitting between us. So we're driving down the road, and I wake up to hearing my mother say, "He's following us." And I knew. I mean, I've seen this man hold her down and beat her senseless, pushing her eyeballs in, strangling her. And I can only imagine what he was going to do to her. I remember waking up so afraid, and I could still feel the air going past me. It was just so like yesterday. But we're driving down the road, and this man, her boyfriend, hides behind a school. And I hear him say, "I think we lost him." We pull back out, not even a minute later, he's behind us again. And he has to be belligerent drunk. So we pull into a sale barn in that town, and my mom begged him, "Please don't get out of the truck." She knew what he was capable of. She knew. I knew, we all knew. And I remember starting to tremble. But he said, "I'm just gonna talk to him." So he gets out of the truck, and I can't see behind me, but all I hear is 3 gunshots. And I'm like, okay, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. And my mom is screaming, and she is just frightened to no end. But then my father comes back to the truck, to the driver's side, and he puts his gun, he rests his gun on the open window, and he tells her, "I just killed him, I just shot him. I'm gonna shoot you next, and then myself, and they're gonna find us in a pile." And I remember her saying, "Lord, if you've ever heard our prayers, hear them now." And she prayed over us a protection. And instantly, that gun jammed. He shot it and fired it. I'm on her lap. The gun is pointing at me too. And she's trying to shove me down, and the gun jams. So she manages to get out of the truck. I'm falling on the ground because she's just running for her life. My 5-year-old sister grabs my 9-month-old sister. How she did this, I don't know. Carries this big car seat running to a nearby house. She just runs away. And I'm staying to fight for my mother. So I decided to run around the truck with her. She ended up falling underneath a tire, broke her leg. managed to get back up, and she's limping, running to the other side, and I'm following her. My dad is strangling her, gets her on the ground, and he's strangling her. And he decides he's going to use the gun one way or the other. So he takes the gun and starts beating her over and over in the back of the head, or in the head, just over and over. And you would think it would make a thud noise, but I will never forget, it was a twang, and I just kept hearing it, twang, twang. It was just bouncing off of her skull. There is blood, so much blood. Now I'm cold in June because my shirt is completely drenched in her blood. I'm trying so hard to get her, and this is all happening around me. He doesn't even know I'm there. And then he decides that's not enough. So he gets down, he's strangling her again, and then he stands up and starts stomping on her neck. Like, he's a big boy, and he's jumping up and stomping, and she's just bouncing. She's just this lifeless body bouncing in front of me. And I'm assuming she's dead. So I'm still climbing on top of this mountain of a man. And I remember trying to pull all these hairs out. I'm trying to pull all these hairs, and he has no clue that I'm there. And he just flings me off like I'm nothing, and I fall to the gravel. At that time, I decide my mom must be dead. So I get up and I start running to where I think my aunt lives. I'm just a little girl, but I hear screams coming from this house, and they're screaming my name. So I run to the nearby house where my sisters were. I didn't know that's where she had went. And I'm sitting there and I'm just shaking. I'm trembling like I have never trembled before. And I'm thinking, my mom's dead. I don't know what to do. And I hear all these sirens and police, just ambulance, all the things. And I'm like, this is it. Now at this time, I have no clue if she's dead or alive. No idea. And so at my another relative's home, just because while she's in the hospital, I have to stay with my little sisters at this place. However, my entire family was steeped in this very strict religion. So it wasn't exactly easy for us there for however long we were there. I swear it felt like months, but it was just a couple of weeks. At the time, my mom was in a coma, so she was alive, but she was in a coma, and very beat up, 186 stitches in her head. She had a broken leg, and somehow they think, I believe a bullet had ricocheted and shot her in the forearm somehow. So we're at our relative's house, and just to give you an example, I was talking to my little cousin, and I pretended to spit Coke on him because I'm ornery, and that's what kids do. I ended up getting beat. He made me pull my pants down in front of my cousin and bend over, and he beat me with like a yardstick ruler thing, and then he beat him for tattling. So while my mother is what I think dead or in the hospital, I'm getting whipped for something I didn't even do. He almost beat my sister pretty good for going out in the front yard, but fortunately my mother did show up and stopped it, and she was a wreck. She had stitches, a bald spot in her head, and arms all beat up, her legs in a cast, and she came to pick us up. So it was a very traumatic time. It just got worse. It's like, how could you even at this time punish a little girl who's been traumatized by such things, and then proceed to just continue to whip her? I never understood it, but unfortunately they didn't know any better. I have to say, in the religion that they were in and still currently are in, it's normal for them to be very strict parents and just, what is it, spare the rod, spoil the child, beat them, they won't die. I assure you they can die. And the rod is the word. Like, they completely misunderstood scripture, and we got the bad end of that deal. But my mother picked us up. She was alive. Actually, her boyfriend got out of the hospital before she did. He had 3 gunshot wounds in the hand, missed his heart by an inch, and in the collarbone. So he was a very lucky man to be alive. But that relationship didn't continue. Clearly he was afraid and didn't want anything to do with it. So my mother's alone and in fear, so she still takes my father back, but they're not allowed to be together. So she testifies for him in prison before he goes to prison. So he only gets 3 years for having a gun. No child endangerment, attempt to murder, nothing. Just for having the gun, 3 years, felony. So that was a shock. I remember the day he went to jail, and I wouldn't cry. I couldn't cry. And he yelled at me, he scolded me. He scolded me for not crying, and I thought, how I don't even know how to feel. I can't feel for you right now. I mean, at the age of 7, that's confusing for a little girl. So that really hurt his feelings, I guess, but I wasn't really too concerned about his feelings. I don't think I had any left for him at that time. But we fast forward a little bit, and my mom did decide to start dating another man, and he was very kind as well. Matter of fact, she ended up marrying him, and he became my stepdad. A wonderful, kind man. And when my father got out of prison, he came a couple of times to see us. But my mother said it would be best if my stepdad Bill could adopt us. And he agreed. My father agreed, which he should have. And it was right, and probably the best decision he ever made, and I could never be thankful enough that he did that. It was the right thing to do. But at that time, I was angry with him because I felt like he rejected me. Like, you should fight for me. I'm your child. There was nothing. As a matter of fact, he ended up starting to date my mother's cousin and marrying her. So now he's not my father anymore, but he's my cousin. And he has 2 more children. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart because he had 2 boys. And I thought, there are the boys that you've always wanted. There they are. And he raised them, but it broke my heart. He was a coal miner, so we were okay. We had a lot of money when we were younger, but when he went to prison, I had nothing. And my mom became very poor. Like, there is a real welfare line with welfare cheese, and everybody says it's so good. It is not good. It is not a good cheese, okay? It's not. It was embarrassing and horrifying, but there was nothing she could do. And my stepfather owed a ton of child support, so we were always in debt, and we never had anything to our name. Growing up was still very difficult. We were still very poor, just a dysfunctional family. The damage it remained. And I became pregnant at 17 years old. I dated a boy from high school, and no girl could tame him, so I thought, I'm goal-oriented, I shall do it. And that's what young girls think they can do. And I became pregnant at 17. But you gotta remember too, I purposely did it because I believed in the Y2K.
Fears of the Y2K bug are keeping many people grounded, and most say they'll settle for being close to home with family and friends.
I believed that was it. God's coming back, like rapture, he's coming to get us, and I won't even have time for a child. So I literally planned this. This is what religion did. Like, it made me believe I had to have a child quickly to live my life quickly, because at 21 I'd be dead. So all these thoughts are in my head. Even though we're not practicing religion, it stayed. And that probably did more damage than my father ever could have, ever. So the man that I married, he wasn't abusive in the form physically at all, but he had a severe porn addiction. I mean, pornography all the time, cheated on me all the time. And I stayed, and I stayed, and I stayed. And I couldn't understand why I kept staying, but I thought, this man is going to love me. And now I'm pregnant with his son. I'm going to have to stay. So we get married, and it just gets worse. I was replaced by pornography constantly. He lost his job because he was looking it up at work on the computers. Computers froze, convenience. He gets busted and gets fired immediately. And I just thought, this is the end. So I have 2 children at this time, and I'm thinking, I can't seriously stay in this relationship. I was anorexic. I didn't even know I was anorexic. And I would go weeks with no food, weeks with nothing. And it felt fine. I hadn't even noticed, but I was very thin and very sick all the time. But I decided that I needed to leave for my children. I didn't want them to become what he become, because he had found pornography when he was a young boy, and I didn't want my children to find it. I didn't want them to see it. I didn't want them to know that life. So I decided to get a divorce. And by that time, I no longer felt anything for him, like nothing, no love. Matter of fact, I tried to get one of my friends to date him after our divorce, because she was kind and I knew I could trust her around my children. Like, this was my mentality. I was like, I don't even want him anymore, like, at all. But after the divorce, I wanted to be married, just not to him. So I started dating, and the man that I started dating was somewhat of a cowboy, and he was very abusive. I had no idea that this kind of abuse existed to me as a man-woman relationship to me. I could see what my mother was going through. He would slap me around, but more of a shaking, slap me around, dragging me across the floor, cheat on me with, like, I think there's 5 different women. So I thought, you know what? I'm never going to date another man that I don't know, because I had no idea who he was. I had just met him. So I decided to date a person that I knew in high school, and it was even worse. So I dated him for 3 months, and it was fine. Moved in with him because, like I said, I wanted to be married to my ex-husband. During this time, I had lost my job as assistant manager at a store because they had sold to a pharmacy. So I was losing my job, I should say. So I had no money, I had nothing. So dating this man, I thought it's good to move in with him. My children are clothed, they're taken care of. But the last 3 months that we were together, he started hitting me. And he was every bit 6'3", 300 some pounds, big man. So I'd hit him back. Like, I wouldn't take anything. I grew up in a home where punching was just normal, so I gave it right back, which is no better. My children fortunately never saw it. It was usually on the weekends when we were drinking, acting like idiots, but he was mean and cruel. And I thought, this is my life. What happens next? I am your perfect country song. I had 0 jobs, I had 0 cars, and I had 0 monies. And now I just wanted to get away from this man that was really violent, and I didn't want my children to see that because I grew up that way. So I decided to move back in with my mom just for a minute to get away from him. He beat me up good one night. I called the police, and I knew that would make me leave. So during that time, my father has developed ALS at 50 years old. Very young, looked like Popeye, very stout. And I don't know if you know anything about ALS. It is just the worst thing to watch. It's like a person turns to stone, but their eyes and mind are just fine. They can see and hear and they know, but they just can't move. The brain can't pass signals to the nervous system, and there's no function there. So I watched him wither away. As I'm going through all of this, the divorce, losing my job, my ex-husband, and then all these traumatic, I am your perfect person to go to a counselor. I'm going, anything changed? Everything changed. Everything was awful. I thought, I'm messing everything up for my children, and everything I want to do and give them, I don't know how to do it. So I decided that I would become an exotic dancer and went back to my ex-husband to stay with him. So here we are, circled all the way back around. I'm with my ex-husband, not really with him, but just staying with him. But I know my children are safe, and I know he's not going to hit me, but I also don't love him, and I don't want to be with him. So it was very dysfunctional. But I wanted to be a dancer only because I remember a teacher sending a little message home with my youngest son saying, I've asked you 3 times to buy your son a ruler. Now back then at the dollar store, a ruler was 50 cents. I didn't have it. I did not have 50 cents. So I said, I'm done. I'm done being poor. I'm done being loved. I'm done. And I wanted to go to the place where no love existed, because I hated men and I hated women, because the women were so mean to me. They think I want their man, they all these accusations, and the whole time I'm like, I just don't want anybody. So I decided to go to the strip club, and it is the darkest place anyone could go to. It's like Sodom and Gomorrah. I picture Sodom and Gomorrah like the strip club, but there was no love there, and I was a superstar. I was good at what I did, made a lot of money, had nothing to show for it. I'd drink and do drugs and cocaine all the time. Most of it was free, but I mean, still the drinking and the smoking, just the horrible habits that you develop. It's like your money just blows away. Never saved a dime. So I became kind of famous in a small town. I was on the business cards. I believe to this day I still am. Yeah, I have cards in my purse with my picture still on it. I show people all the time, you know, this is what God can change you to. But there was a time that there was a man that walked in the bar, and he sat at the end, and I just thought, this is the most beautiful man I've ever seen in my life, ever laid eyes on, ever. And a mutual friend of ours brought him there because the beautiful man was their DD. And I remember him hiding his hands under the bar, and I asked him to buy me a drink. He was 18 years old, had no idea. He couldn't even buy me a drink, but we became great friends. It was probably a year. And then we just decided to go have coffee and go on a date. And I really cared for him. Like, we developed a relationship, merely friends, but you know, over time it developed to be a lot more strong feelings for each other. So we decided to start dating. And we fell head over heels for each other instantly. Matter of fact, we started dating. We were engaged by January 10th and married April 24th, like within just a few months. Boom, boom, boom. So, fell in love with him, and I couldn't dance anymore. I couldn't. I found love. I found purpose. I found something more than just self, you know. So, we got married. But going from that environment to a marriage, even if you mean well, I was still wanting to drink every weekend. And the alcohol, like I would binge drink so badly. And I have never been diagnosed with alcoholism or alcoholic, but I drank every weekend. And when I did, I drank to the point of not remembering or vomiting or just making a complete fool of myself. And it was ruining our new marriage. Every weekend we were divorced or something was going on. And it wasn't just drinking, it was just little things. Just we were both still kind of selfish and didn't know each other. Meanwhile, my poor boys, they're dealing with all of this stuff from their mother because it's not their fault. They're just handed all this stuff. And our 13-year-old decided he wanted to go to a church camp. And I remember thinking, mind you, I'm not in church at all, but I remember thinking, well, if it's one of those churches that don't speak in tongues or they cut their hair, you mind it, and here, you learn this, and here's how you pray, and here's how you do it. And I gave him these lectures. This is a 13-year-old boy. He's like, he just wants to go to church camp. That's it. But that's what religion will do to you. And I was like, I just want to keep him safe, because I did want to keep him safe. And I thought that was the best way. My family thought that was the best way. They did the best thing that they knew how to do. So I tried. I said, you can go, just with these stipulations. Just remember, if you hear this, it's not true. He comes back. He is so different. He is a new human. I'm thinking, what the heck did this place do to my kid? So he tells Tommy he wants to go to the church there. And I'm like, oh boy. I said, Tommy, you know what? You go ahead and go. And I'm just, it's not me right now. I don't want to give up my makeup. This is what I'm thinking. I don't want to give up my makeup. I'm not interested in being embarrassed of myself anymore. And that kind of God, I don't want anything to do with it. I was so mad at God. I was like, how could you give me this life and somebody else a good life? Is this just playing cards and I got the Joker or I got the ace, lucky you. So I was pretty mad at God. So I was like, I don't even want to go. Tommy came back after church, completely different. Just different. Something was different. And I thought, all right, let's see what's going on. I want to see how safe my family is with this. Now, mind you, my oldest son wants nothing to do with it. So I go, and it was amazing. It was refreshing. The people, they were kind to me. And they cut their hair and wore their makeup, and they were still kind. And I thought, they didn't judge me for wearing my makeup. I want to see how this goes. And they were kind to me. And something snapped that day. And God was trying to wash away all that yuck that had been in my brain for so long. It's like, I'm not the father you think I am. So I came back changed. And it was great until my oldest son decided that he was going to start doing drugs. And he is 14, 15. Found out he was taking Vicodin, snorting things on the bus. He was huffing things. I guess there was gasoline in his room. He was piercing his body with pipes in his hips. He was cutting with anything he can get his hands on. And this is a perfectly beautiful blonde-haired baby. Like, there was nothing that could be wrong with this child, I thought. Like, this doesn't happen to people like me with perfect children. Why would this happen? And I'm in church, God. This doesn't happen? We ended up having to take him to a children's psych ward to evaluate him, just to make sure that he wasn't going to hurt himself anymore. I couldn't bear the thought of it. We took gasoline and all kinds of makeshift things that I don't even know what they were that he was inhaling. He had burned his lungs and he had to get on medication, and he had to be on a heart medication. It was so bad. And I just thought, my baby has to be on a heart medication because of drugs. I thought, this is so awful. So the neighbors that invited my youngest son to church said, we're going to pray and fast with you. And they were the greatest neighbors. They never once invited us to church. They just, if something broke, you'd see them with a toolbox in their hand, not beating down our door trying to help us, or let me carry this for you, or let me help you with your garden. They were just kind. And they said, we're going to fast and pray with you for your oldest son. I said, okay. So our oldest son went to stay with their dad just for a few weeks, just get a little breather. And that was just so much worse because his dad was just allowing whatever. He wanted to be his friend, didn't know what was going on. So we forced him to come back home, and he hates me. He hates me. This boy hates me. But he comes home, knocks on the door when he gets ready to come home, and his eyes were welted up. And I'm like, what's going on? And he just grabs a hold of Tommy and starts weeping. I'm like, oh my stars. We fasted and prayed for 2 weeks, and this boy comes back to our house a completely different human being. I thought he wanted to come home, and he was broken, and he didn't know why, and he didn't understand, but we knew that God had been working on him. We knew things were changing in the realm. We knew, but he was still a broken little boy. I later found out that he wanted to go to church on Mother's Day, which he did, but he wanted to go stand on the platform with a gun and look me in the eyes and say, I hate you, and there is no God. And he wanted to pull the trigger. But that day was different because he ended up getting saved, and he couldn't help it. And he got baptized that day on Mother's Day. And I thought, that is the best gift anyone could ever give me. But the thought of losing my child was just all the things that went through his head, like all the hurt that he had, things that I caused or whatever life did to him. It was a traumatic event, I believe, for everyone. It was, but what a blessing it was to see on Mother's Day that I got a gift instead of Satan. It was so precious to me. So a lot of things had changed, and he started wanting to do a Bible study. And he asked Tommy, he says, will you do a Bible study with me? Tommy's like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but okay. So he said, okay, we'll do it on Wednesdays. So on Tuesday night, he write down some stuff, what he thinks he's going to preach to the boys. It's just us. And then he loved it. He loved it. So he's just eating this up, but they started inviting people. And more kids came. We had all these teens in our house. We had over 30 teens in our home, teens that they didn't even know, started showing up in our home. There were cars in our yard, and people starting to wonder what's happening in our house. So the mayor, he says, what are you guys doing? Tommy says, oh, we're having a Bible study, kids are getting together and we're just talking about Jesus. It just literally organically happened. He says, you know what, it's gonna get cold. Why don't you come down here and use the mayor's office, because your house isn't big enough. And it wasn't. I had children everywhere. They were everywhere in my home. In the bathroom, in the living room, in the kitchen, they were everywhere. So we decided we were going to go to the mayor's. I still have that picture too. We're in the mayor's office with all these kids around the table, just loving Jesus and wanting to know, hungry to know. So the pastor of the church that we were going to says, you have a calling. We recognize that, and you need to be our children's youth leader. So we became the youth pastors. And I'm thinking, this is happening so fast. What is even happening? We didn't know. And I couldn't tell you how many teens that we were overseeing. It was just incredible. But it grew so much that we had to add more people to help us govern these teens. But the pastor then said, you have even a bigger calling, and you need to be pastors. You need to start a church. We had a computer, a djembe, and like a couple little speakers, and he helped us get started, and we started our church in a YMCA with the worst orange chairs that you could ever imagine that pinch your backside when you sit down, but we were never so excited to have this place. We paid $40, I think it was a week, $40 a week, and we just got together, and the church started growing into this beautiful thing. And now we bought our own building in New Philadelphia, and this is what we're doing, and it's growing. We have an academy. My husband teaches LAKL, and that's every Tuesday he does that. He's writing books, and both of our boys today are serving in our church, and their families and their children. It has been absolutely incredible. And now I'm pursuing my master's degree. I'm 2 courses away from my master's degree in Christian counseling. I'm studying temperament theory. And I'm shocked when I think of where I am and who I am from where I was. Even I can't believe it. Even I can't understand it. So it's been beautiful. And that's kind of the gist of it, really. So I wrote a book. It's called God, I Forgive You. And yes, you can forgive a sinless God. If you've ever been angry at somebody and they actually didn't do anything wrong, you still have to find it in your heart to forgive them. And that's what this book is based on, my life and everything I've been through. You can find this book on Amazon, you can have it on Kindle, you can put it on your audiobook because I do have it recorded so that anybody that doesn't like to read, they can listen to it and pause when they like. So I pray it blesses anyone that purchases this book.